My daughter and I secretly went to my husband's swimming club without informing him in advance, but instead of seeing his surprised, joyful face, my eyes blurred when I saw my husband sitting on the edge of the pool, using his body to tightly hold a blonde woman, their lips touching with such professional precision that my heart stopped beating. I was about to scream right then and there, but I couldn't, not with my daughter present. I pulled her hand and turned her away before she could see that awful scene and said, "Let's go, sweetie. Your dad is practicing breathing." But I already had a different plan, one that would make them tremble. My name is Kimberly Roberts, 38 years old, regional sales director for BMW Midwest, living in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And this morning, when the Delta plane's wheels gently touched the runway at Detroit Metropolitan, I still thought I was simply bringing home two small gifts and a sweet surprise for my family. A dark green box containing a Rolex Submariner for Raymond, my husband, and a mini American Girl doll purse for Lisa, our 9-year-old daughter. I came home 2 days earlier than planned, without notice, because I wanted to see the way Lisa would scream "Mom" and leap into my arms, and how Raymond would smile, slightly embarrassed, and ask in his warm, familiar voice, "Why didn't you tell me?" I would have picked you up, and I'd reply, "Because I wanted to see you surprised." Detroit's light tilted onto the airplane wing, my face reflecting in the oval window like a warped mirror, and in that fluttering moment of the heart, I couldn't have imagined that just a few hours later, everything I believed to be certain would crack like the surface of a tempered glass struck precisely at its center. I pulled my carry-on, moved through the crowd at Gate A, and texted Lisa, "Honey, Mommy's on the way home." She replied instantly with a string of heart emojis, and then typed, "Daddy went to swimming class, won't be back till 10 like the other days." My hand froze on the suitcase handle. Swimming. I heard Eleanor's voice, Raymond's mother, echo from a long past summer. "He's scared of water, dear." Nearly drowned in Lake St. Clair when he was 5. Back when we just got married, I used to tease, "I'll teach you to swim." And he'd laugh, shake his head, and wave it off as if trying to gather all his fear into a single awkward gesture. For the past 3 months, I'd been rotating through Boston, Michigan, Cleveland endlessly, nights in hotels thick with the sterile scent of central air. I trusted Raymond's messages. "I'm hitting the gym to lose the office belly," evening classes at Detroit Athletic Club near the office, and I believed it more each time I looked at the framed photo on the shelf. Lisa wrapping her arms around her dad's neck at Cranbrook Park, me standing behind them, sunlight pouring like honey. But her message sent a cold line running from the back of my neck down to my shoulder blade. Why swimming? Why always on the days I was away? I opened Uber and booked a ride to Bloomfield Hills. The Rolex box in my handbag nudged gently against my hip, as if whispering, "Don't be so suspicious." And I whispered back, "Just get home first." As the car exited I-94, I looked out the window, Detroit's city lights receding like a rewinding film. A 2-hour flight, and now only 20 miles to go. I imagined Lisa running to the door, yelling, "Mom!" and throwing herself at me, her hands still sticky with the chocolate cookies Eleanor brought over yesterday. And she did just that. When I opened the door, Lisa's tiny rubber sandals slapped across the hardwood floor. She rushed over, beaming, "Daddy's at swimming class, won't be home till late." "You're early." I hugged her, her hair smelling like green apples. "Yes, I came home 2 days early. Let's go out for dinner, a really nice one." One thought filled my head. If Raymond was really at the Detroit Athletic Club like he said, why not take Lisa there, have dinner, and surprise him? A small, sweet plan, enough to dissolve that prickly feeling tapping at my chest. I changed jackets, tied up my hair, and drove the freshly washed BMW A7 out of the garage. Maple Road was quiet, autumn leaves blazing gold on either side. I rolled down the window, Detroit's cold wind weaving through my hair, carrying the scent of wood smoke and coffee from the corner cafe. Driving into downtown, golden lights along Woodward Avenue lit up like beads on a silk shawl. I smiled, imagining Raymond's surprise at seeing us in the lobby, Lisa holding up her new purse, and me handing him the gift box he'd always wanted. Minutes later, we stood in the lobby of the Detroit Athletic Club. Autumn wind chilled just enough for me to pull my coat tighter. Inside was the scent of polished wood, interlaced with the expensive perfume of passing women, the soft tapping of heels on marble. I held Lisa's hand and whispered, "Daddy's swimming. Let's surprise him." She nodded, smiling, her American Girl purse slung across her body like a little medal. We walked down the gleaming tile hallway toward the indoor pool. Through a giant window like a movie screen, ceiling lights scattered into countless glints on the blue water. I smiled, took a breath. Then, as if a curtain had dropped, I saw Raymond. He was sitting on the pool's edge, one hand behind the back of a blonde woman in a sporty blue swimsuit. She stood between his legs, pressed against him, head thrown back, laughing, and he leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a clumsy touch of a man afraid of water seeking balance. It was a kiss well acquainted with itself, soft and sure, like a ritual. I didn't hear Lisa because everything in the Diac disappeared at that moment, except their lips, his hand, her black swim watch reflecting ceiling light like an exclamation mark. Madeline. I etched the name into memory. I had seen that face, that name once in Raymond's work email, when he mentioned a VIP client. Lisa tugged my sleeve, eyes drawn to the giant Christmas tree in the side hall, not seeing the scene beyond the glass. I placed a hand on her back and gently steered her away. "Let's go, honey. Daddy's busy." The words busy slipped from my mouth like a blade that refused to pierce. I pulled out my iPhone, hand steady as it framed the shot through glass. My heartbeat was not as fast as I expected, but slow. So slow each beat sounded like a hammer striking wood, sealing a door inside me, one thud at a time. I filmed long enough not to need a second look, close enough to read lips saying, "Just a little more," without hearing the sound. Then I put the phone away, bent down, and whispered to Lisa, "Daddy will swim for a while. Let's go home." She nodded, lifted her new purse in front of the mirror, spun once. I smiled, my facial muscles numb from holding back every small twitch. I ordered an Uber from the lobby, didn't drive. My mind whispered, "Don't turn yourself into the 10 p.m. traffic report over a reckless swerve." In the car, I opened the Empower app and spoke to Ava, my virtual finance assistant, in a flat tone. "Ava, show me a family expense overview for the past 3 months." The screen lit up, graphs dancing. $3,500 transferred monthly to a name I'd never seen, Meridian Property Solutions, LLC. $48,000 withdrawn from the 401k in 4 neat installments, scattered purchases in Midtown at a boutique furniture store I'd never visited. "Classify all transfers to Meridian by date, note origin, identify owner," I said. Ava returned, "Owner, Raymond Roberts." The entire car darkened. I heard Lisa breathing evenly beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, arms still hugging the new purse. "Ava," I continued, throat dry, "open fixed assets list, compare home and lakeside cabin records." I typed Zillow, swiped to another tab, opened the Michigan Property Records portal, entered the Lakeview cabin address. The screen jumped to the Transactions section, and there, in pale red, Pending transfer. I clicked. Seller, Kimberly Roberts. Buyer, Meridian Property Solutions, LLC. Amount, $300,000. I looked at the signature, a clumsy left-handed version impersonating my right. I heard my own voice in my head, "Stay calm. Only calmness lets you survive." I downloaded the PDF, saved it in a folder named June Lake, a name I invented on the spot, so I wouldn't have to call it Betrayal. "Mom, are we home yet?" Lisa nuzzled into my coat. "Almost, sweetheart." I stroked her hair, eyes fixed on the word, pending. I called the Oakland County Register of Deeds office, left an urgent message with address, file number, and the phrase "suspected fraudulent conveyance. Please place a temporary hold." The operator repeated the case number, calm as if this were a minor clerical error in some assembly line. But for me, it was the only rope across a chasm. As the car turned into our tree-lined street, I suddenly remembered a distant afternoon. Lake St. Clair, still as a silver dish, Raymond kneeling with a simple silver ring in hand, saying, "I promise you'll never have to stand alone." The wind blowing from the lake, carrying the damp metallic scent of water and fresh grass. I had believed him, believed so thoroughly that the belief itself felt like a tangible object with weight, one I could place on a shelf and admire every night. I opened the door, turned on the kitchen light, placed the Rolex box on the table like an unspoken question. Lisa ran off to find Peanut, our rescue dog, to show off her new purse. I stood at the kitchen counter, took off my coat, and in those few seconds, I heard a sound as thin as glass cracking in hot water. It was the sound of trust heating too quickly under the chill of a cold truth. I opened my laptop, dragged all downloaded files into a new folder named Lakeview Hold, drafted an email to the only family lawyer I trusted from James's referral, Vera Murphy, but paused, because before sending, I needed one last puzzle piece. Emily, the young customer service rep at the insurance firm where Raymond worked, who had visited our home a few times during staff parties. I remembered her eyes, quick, but always slightly hesitant when looking at Raymond, like she wanted to say something but didn't dare. I opened messages, typed, "Emily, do you know a client named Madeline? Has anyone ever scheduled appointments without submitting contracts?" The soft yellow kitchen light fell on my hand as I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. The phone buzzed. "She's VIP, but no contract. I've seen her name on our internal schedule, but no policy attached." I replied with just one word, "Thanks." Then reopened the pool video. I didn't want to hurt myself, but I needed to see one more second to ensure that tomorrow morning, when I said "I know," I'd say it in the voice of someone who had just stepped out of a dream and remembered every detail, not someone still dreaming, trying to prove it. Outside the window, the silent rooftops of Bloomfield Hills stood like a frozen set, and I saw myself, a woman just landed, luggage tag still dangling from her suitcase, already having to put away the box of his dreams and make a phone call she never wanted to make. "Mom," I said when Eleanor answered, "I'm back." She paused, then quietly said, "Kimberly, Raymond. Lately, he said he's been taking swim classes." I closed my eyes, smiled without joy. "I know." I hung up before she could ask more, because I didn't want anyone to witness the moment I drew a deep breath, touched the cold edge of the wooden counter, and made a decision I knew would shift the course of my life. Less than an hour from now, I would look Raymond in the eyes, place the Rolex box between us, and say that I had learned how to swim, even if he still feared the water. I sat on the living room sofa, lights off, lit only by the dim glow of the microwave clock and the faint yellow porch light outside. The house was silent. Each tick of the wall clock felt like a knock against the weight of waiting. Exactly at 10 p.m., the soft click of the lock sounded. Raymond walked in, jacket slung over his shoulder, pool water still clinging to his hair and collar. He whistled softly, fumbling for the switch, and then flipped on the lights. The room flooded with brightness. He froze. In that moment, I saw his eyes widen, pupils dilate like the light had burned them. He jerked back a step, nearly dropping his keys when he saw me sitting there, motionless on the sofa, hands clasped, my face cold and still as stone. "Kimberly," his voice cracked softly, hesitant. What are you doing here?" I thought. "You thought I was still in Boston?" I cut in, my voice so calm it surprised even me. "I came back 2 days early." And what a coincidence, just in time to catch a swim lesson. He froze mid-smile, lips parted but unable to form words. He tried to keep composure, but I saw his shoulders tense, that defensive twitch of someone who knows they've been seen doing the inexplicable. "What are you talking about?" he asked, voice trembling faintly. I stood up. The ceiling light poured down, catching the steel glint in my eyes. Slowly, I retrieved the Rolex box from the cabinet and placed it on the table between us. Deep green, gold logo gleaming. A gift for a man I no longer recognized. "I was going to give you this tonight," I said slowly, to celebrate 5 years since we bought the cabin by the lake. But then I found out you forged my signature to transfer that house to your LLC. He flinched slightly, forcing a steady tone. Are you sure? Maybe there's a mix-up with the paperwork. You're taking swim lessons with a 28-year-old private coach and forging my signature to transfer the lake house to your LLC? I said, voice low and even, as though reading each line of an indictment. He stammered, voice shaking. You misunderstood. It was just a joke. I meant, I'm not mistaken, Raymond. I have video. The air thickened into stillness. In that moment, I saw him swallow hard, his gaze fixed on the floor like he wanted to crawl into his own shadow. Lisa was asleep upstairs, and only the soft hum of the heater broke the silence. Raymond stepped back, then tried to regain composure. I don't know what's happened to you. I'm going to step out for a bit. We can talk when you've calmed down. Don't act like I've lost control, I said quietly. Exactly who's losing control, Raymond? He looked at me, eyes disoriented, then turned away. He silently stuffed a few things into a brown leather duffel, the one I bought him at the Chicago Fair last year. I noticed his hands shaking, not from fear of me, but of what he'd just exposed. I'll stay at a hotel for a few days, he said, trying to keep his voice calm, but it caught in his throat. So we both have time to think. I said nothing, just watched him, eyes following the zipper closing the bag. Neat, final. The door slammed shut behind him, sharp, cold, hollow. The house fell silent. I returned to the dining table, opened the Rolex box, gazed at the watch gleaming under the light. The minute hand crept forward. Exactly 10:17 p.m. I let out a soft, cold laugh. You said you wanted to learn how to swim, Raymond. Maybe you should start by learning not to drown in your own lies. I closed the box, returned it to the cabinet, then opened my laptop. The screen lit up, reflecting my face. Not the woman returning from a business trip, but one preparing for war. In the search bar, my fingers paused over a familiar name. Vera Murphy, an Irish-American attorney specializing in divorces with complex financial disputes. I knew of her through James, an old college friend and CPA who once helped me audit taxes when Raymond opened a secondary account. James had said, if anyone can beat a cheat, it's Vera. She won a $2.7 million case once. I remember I had smiled lightly. I don't need to win, James. I just need fairness. I pressed my lips together, opened my email, and typed the first lines. I need an urgent appointment. And I have evidence. In the dark, the screen blinked. Message sent. I leaned back, listening to my own breathing mingling with the warmth from the fireplace. Outside, the autumn wind howled through the trees. And in that moment, I knew. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Detroit lay beneath a thin veil of mist, like parchment. I brewed coffee, watching the steam rise from the white ceramic mug Lisa had once gifted me for Mother's Day. The words, "World's Best Mom," now half faded from too many washes. The coffee was bitter, but not enough to drown the metallic taste in my throat. Raymond hadn't returned. His message was just a few empty words. I need some time. I didn't reply. I simply stared at the text, then deleted it. At 9:15 a.m., I parked outside a red brick building in downtown Birmingham. Vera's office was on the third floor, a modern space with clear glass walls, walnut desks, and little cactus pots. Vera Murphy, around 42, wine-red hair, thin silver-rimmed glasses, stood by the window when I walked in. Her voice was low, warm, slightly husky, the tone of someone who's fought many battles. Kimberly Roberts? I read your email last night, she said, shaking my hand firmly. I'm guessing this is serious. I nodded, placing a USB drive on her desk containing all the videos, document scans, and PDFs. I need you to review this, and I want to halt the lake house transfer immediately. Vera sat down, plugged in the USB, her eyes skimming through the files at a pace that made me both admire and fear her. She raised an eyebrow at the pending transfer entry on the Michigan Property Records site. Forged signature, privately formed LLC, retirement account withdrawal, all within the same time frame, she said, looking up at me. Do you have video evidence of the affair? I do. I pushed my phone toward her. Vera watched a short clip, then stopped. She removed her glasses and placed them on the desk. Good. You've come to the right person. We can file for divorce citing fraudulent conveyance. I'll prepare a court motion to freeze all transactions involving this LLC. Then we'll pursue restoration of your ownership of the lake house, and if necessary, press charges for signature forgery. I sat silently, staring at the stack of documents before me. Physical proof of everything I hadn't wanted to believe. Vera tilted her head, her voice softening. Kimberly, you're very composed. I see that. But to get through this, you need to be ready for one thing. He will try to paint you as crazy. That's what people do when they're afraid of the truth. I pressed my lips together. I'm not crazy, Vera. I'm just tired of holding it together for too long. Vera gave a faint smile and handed me a cup of hot tea she had just brewed. Then let me handle the legal part. You handle the calm. Deal? I nodded. Sunlight from the window fell across the desk, reflecting the faces of two women, one freshly betrayed, the other seasoned in turning betrayal into strategy. And in that light, I saw something new. A beginning, not an end. That afternoon, I returned home, autumn sunlight streaming through the maple trees outside, casting a strangely warm golden hue across the living room wall. Lisa was doing her homework while I sat in the study, opened my laptop, and saw a new notification. One attachment from Emily Sanders. Emily, the young assistant who once worked under Raymond in customer support, had kept her word. I opened the email. The first line read, Kimberly, I'm sending you the contract copy and internal emails between Raymond and the sales team. Please don't tell anyone it came from me. I'm scared of being found out. I inhaled deeply. The attachment contained a thread of emails between Raymond and a group of staff. He had unilaterally altered the terms of insurance contracts, added fake service upgrades, and collected direct commissions from clients. The total amounted to nearly $88,000, distributed across secondary accounts, including Meridian Property Solutions, LLC. I sat still for several minutes, listening to the wind outside the window. Each email, each line, each figure was a precise cut. The man who once held my hand and promised, I'll never let you stand alone, was now living off the money of his clients, of mine, and of his own daughter. I called Vera via Zoom. She studied the documents on screen, nodded, her tone calm. This is clear evidence of insurance fraud. But we won't send it directly from my office. It'll come from you. Anonymous report. I opened the official website of the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, DIFS, Michigan's financial oversight agency. Vera guided me through each field. Type of violation, misrepresentation in policy, description, altered contracts for personal gain. When I reached the anonymous reporter section, I paused, staring at those words for a long time. Part of me wanted to sign my real name, to stop being afraid. But Vera spoke gently. Justice sometimes requires temporary silence. Let them speak first. I nodded, hit submit. The screen displayed a green message. Your report has been submitted successfully. Case reference, DIFS-FRA-27418. A soft sound pinged, the confirmation. But to me, it sounded like the latch clicking shut on an old chapter. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The sun had set, the room bathed in red dusk. Lisa called from the next room. Mom, what are we having for dinner? I smiled faintly, my voice oddly steady. Pizza, sweetheart. Tonight I want something simple. I shut the laptop, stood up, and walked toward the kitchen. Inside, the soft orange light of the oven glinted off my hands, and I realized even the simplest acts, like placing a pizza on a tray, could be gestures of freedom. Somewhere across the city, Raymond was likely still sitting in his hotel room, unaware that the first wave had already begun. And me, I was, for the first time, beginning to take control of my own story. 3 days later, the wave I had set in motion began to spread. On Monday morning, as Raymond stepped into the downtown Detroit insurance office, the receptionist called out, "Someone's here for you, court papers." He turned around, barely had time to react before the process server, dressed in a gray suit, voice firm, placed a manila envelope on the desk. "Raymond Roberts?" "Yes, that's me." "You've been served with a divorce summons from the Oakland County Court. Please sign here to confirm receipt." The lobby fell utterly silent. Colleagues passing by glanced over, pretending to be busy with phone calls or documents. Raymond signed, his hand trembling. He tore open the envelope, reading the first line. Petitioner, Kimberly Roberts. Below was a list of civil offenses: marital asset fraud, signature forgery, concealment of income, and a court-issued order, dated that very morning, to freeze all accounts under Meridian Property Solutions, LLC. That afternoon, my phone rang repeatedly. I let it go to the fourth ring before answering. Raymond's voice was shaky. "Kimberly, I just made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I stood by the window, watching tree shadows stretch across the walkway. The late daylight filtered through the blinds, cutting my face in two, half lit, half in shadow. It wasn't a mistake, Raymond. It was calculated silence on the other end. I heard him breathing, short, panicked, like someone grasping at something already lost. "I need your forgiveness," he said. "I've lost everything, my job, my reputation, even my daughter." I cut in, my voice calm as a still lake. "What you lost wasn't because of me. I just brought light to what you tried to hide a few seconds past." Then his voice dropped, barely a whisper. "What do you want, Kimberly?" I glanced at the watch on my wrist. Not the Rolex, just my old Seiko, still ticking steadily since 2015, the year we bought the lake cabin. "Justice," I said. "Just justice." I hung up, then stood there for a few minutes, letting the silence fill the room. On the table sat a cooled cup of tea and the file Vera had returned that morning. Divorce filing, case 3247B. In the corner was a handwritten note from Vera. "Keep calm, we are ahead." I smiled faintly. Out on the porch, Lisa was drawing with sidewalk chalk. She sketched a small house with a red roof and a woman standing by the door, holding the leash of a tiny dog. I sat beside her without a word, just watching that drawing, and I knew everything was moving in the right direction. That night, after Lisa had gone to bed, I cleared the dining table, stacked Vera's files neatly, and was about to turn off the light when the phone rang. The screen read, "Eleanor." I hesitated a few seconds before picking up. Her voice was hoarse, trembling, laced with sighs. "Kimberly? Are you all right?" I leaned against the kitchen counter, looking out the window where the porch light cast a glow on the glass. "I'm okay, Mom. Everything's being handled." On the other end, she was silent for a while, then softly said, 3 months ago, Raymond asked me to put the lake house in my name. He said it was to avoid property taxes. But when I looked at the papers, something felt wrong. It had your signature, but the handwriting was strange, like it was copied. I refused, Kimberly. I knew I shouldn't sign. But I didn't tell you. I was afraid it would ruin your marriage. Her voice cracked, like someone who had carried guilt too long. "I should have told you sooner." "I'm sorry." I gently tightened my grip on the phone, listening to the wind slipping through the window crack. A small sound, but enough to stretch the moment. "I understand, Mom," I said softly, trying to keep my voice gentle. But silence is part of the hurt, too. On the other side, just a deep exhale. "Kimberly, I know you're a good person. I just want you and Lisa to be at peace." "We will be, Mom," I replied, glancing toward the stairs, where the nightlight from Lisa's room spilled a thin but steady stream of light. "Thank you for telling me." After the call ended, I placed the phone on the table, a strange mix of sorrow and serenity rising in my chest. Eleanor's apology had come late, but it was a small crack in the wall of silence, and sometimes that's all it takes for light to get through. I turned off the lights, climbed the stairs, and knew I had taken one more step through the dark. Lisa's door was slightly ajar, a soft orange nightlight spilling across her star-shaped rug. She was sitting quietly, piecing together Legos, her face tilted, dark brown hair falling gently across her cheek. When I walked in, she looked up, her eyes wide and clear like an autumn lake. "Mom, is Dad still at the hotel?" Her voice was small but steady. I sat down beside her, gathering a few stray Lego bricks from the floor. "Yes, he'll be there a bit longer." I paused, inhaled deeply, then spoke slowly, carefully. "Lisa, I need to tell you something. Dad and I are getting divorced, but the most important thing you must remember is, I'm still here. I'll always be here." She sat still, her tiny fingers turning a red Lego piece. After a while, she looked up, her eyes misty. "Will Dad ever come back, Mom?" I brushed her hair gently, feeling the weight of her head rest against my shoulder. "Dad can still visit you, still love you. But from now on, it'll be just you and me living here. I promise you'll never feel alone." Lisa stayed quiet, then suddenly hugged me tightly, her small arms wrapped around my neck, whispering into my ear, "You're my superhero, Mom." My chest tightened. I smiled faintly, tears falling onto her shoulder. "I'm not a superhero, Lisa. I'm scared too. I'm sad. But I'll be strong, because you're here with me." She nodded, still clinging to me. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, leaves rustling like a lullaby. I looked toward her little desk, where she'd taped a photo of the two of us at Cranbrook Park, beneath which she'd scribbled in pink marker, "Home is where Mom is." I kissed the top of her head, soft and warm, like touching a promise. "Sleep now, Lisa. Tomorrow we'll have breakfast at your favorite cafe, okay?" "Okay," she whispered, still holding on. As Lisa drifted to sleep, I remained beside her, listening to her gentle breathing, the most peaceful sound I'd ever known. And in that moment, I realized every battle in this life begins and ends with one thing: protecting the ones we love. 3 weeks later, the real battle began. On Monday morning, the glass building of Midwest Guardian Insurance, where Raymond worked, glittered under the early winter sun. I walked in with my attorney, Vera Murphy. Her heels echoed steadily against the marble floor, firm and composed, like a drumbeat before a verdict. We were guided to the 14th floor conference room, where the company's board awaited. Inside, a long walnut table, the air thick with coffee and fresh paper. Raymond was already seated at the head, gray shirt, crooked tie, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me enter, he froze, lips trembling as if to speak, then said nothing. I placed 3 thick binders on the table, each labeled neatly: video, DAC pool footage, property fraud, Lakeview Cabin, 401k withdrawal statement. Vera spoke first, voice clear, steady, and cold. "These documents prove Mr. Raymond Roberts violated company ethics, forged his wife's signature to transfer marital assets, and withdrew from his retirement fund to finance fraudulent activity." The room was silent. I saw the HR manager adjust her glasses while the CFO flipped through the statements. Every pause over a figure felt like another stone dropped into water. Vera inserted a USB, and the screen lit up. Raymond in the pool, arms around Madeline, a kiss illuminated by DC's overhead lights. No sound was needed. The room froze. I saw Raymond's throat twitch, his face flush red in the silence. Vera continued, "Personal behavior can be overlooked, but financial fraud, especially involving retirement accounts and insurance contracts, is a federal offense. All documents will be handed to the FBI for investigation into wire fraud." Raymond stood suddenly. "You can't do this. This is personal. It has nothing to do with the company." Vera remained composed, not even looking at him. "Wrong, Mr. Roberts. You used company accounts to move funds and forged internal client contracts. All verified on the server this morning. The HR director, a stern middle-aged woman, closed the file and stated bluntly, Raymond Roberts, you are terminated immediately for ethical violations, financial fraud, and insurance deception. All system access is revoked effective. Now Raymond turned to me, eyes pleading. Kimberly, don't do this. I'll lose everything, I replied, with a raspy but calm voice. You already did, Raymond. You just didn't realize it. 2 security guards appeared at the door. Raymond removed his badge, placed it on the table, and walked out between the 2 men in black suits. The door shut behind him, sealing the silence. Vera packed the files, slid the 3 binders into her case. That's the first step. Now let the FBI do theirs. I nodded, glancing out the massive window, where the gray Detroit sky stretched endlessly, rows of cars lining the highway like infinite wires. Vera added softly, as a reminder, Kimberly, justice doesn't need noise. It just needs to be certain. I pressed my lips together, looked at my hands, still trembling slightly, but steadier than before. As we exited the building, the Detroit wind blew hard, pushing my hair back, and for a brief moment, I felt light. Not because he was fired, but because for the first time, the truth no longer belonged to the liar. Just 3 days after that meeting, Detroit started buzzing, not from news outlets, but from social media. On Instagram, the account of Madeline Hartman, the 28-year-old swim coach with nearly 170,000 followers, suddenly became the center of attention. Old photos of her by the DAC pool, captions like, morning swim, clear mind, were now flooded with angry comments. An older American woman, maybe my mother's age, wrote, You swim with someone's husband, you drown in truth. That post alone got over 12,000 shares in one day. Madeline tried to delete photos, disable comments, but the internet doesn't believe in clean slates. Women's forums, from Facebook to Reddit, reposted the video of her in the DAC pool. Clear footage, bright lights, the unmistakable embrace, the undeniable kiss. That evening, I said nothing. I just sat by the window, chamomile tea cooling in my hands, scrolling through headlines. Vera messaged, Let the public do its part. Sometimes justice comes with its own hashtag. A week later, the landlord of Madeline's Midtown Detroit apartment issued a termination notice. Reason: funds used for rent originated from an LLC under criminal investigation. Madeline didn't respond. She quietly packed up, deleted all posts, shut down her Instagram, and left Detroit for her hometown, Gulfport, Mississippi. A neighbor told a local reporter, she left at dawn, just 2 suitcases and a gray cat. Meanwhile, Raymond's embezzlement and wire fraud case was transferred from Detroit PD to the FBI's Michigan field office. The investigation took nearly 3 months, reviewing LLC accounts, bank statements, and altered insurance contracts. On the day of trial, Raymond stood in court wearing an old suit, his face gaunt. His defense attorney pleaded for leniency due to a momentary lapse in judgment, but the prosecution only needed 2 pieces of evidence: the forged Lakeview cabin contract and the altered insurance emails. The judge ruled 4 years probation, repayment of $88,000 to the company, forfeiture of all LLC assets, and revocation of his insurance license. Raymond bowed his head, his voice barely audible. I understand. I wasn't in court that day. I stayed home, baking apple pie with Lisa. When Vera texted the verdict, I stared at the screen a long while, then replied, Thank you. Let Lakeview rest now. That afternoon, wind blew in from Lake St. Clair, carrying the scent of cold water and the cry of seagulls. I opened the window, took a deep breath. There was no feeling of victory, only a stillness as deep as water after a storm, the kind of stillness that costs more than it gives. Lisa came in, hands dusted with flour, holding a freshly baked pie. Mom, can I write your name on the crust? I nodded, smiling. Of course, sweetheart. Can you add the word freedom, too? She giggled, pressing a toothpick into the sugar crust. carving out each messy but clear letter: freedom. In the end, freedom didn't come with courtroom applause. It came in the scent of apple pie and the laughter of a child. And yet, when winter sunlight streamed through the window the next morning, I felt an unfamiliar void. No more arguments, no more lawyer emails, no more midnight texts from Royce. Only silence. And in that silence, sometimes I heard my own voice again. Tired, but alive. One Thursday afternoon, I drove nearly an hour to the Ann Arbor Community Center. Every Thursday, a group of women met there, the Divorced Women Support Group. No billboards, no speakers. Just a beige room, folding chairs in a circle, and faces that wore the same tired hope I did. We shared names. There was a silver-haired woman named Marjorie, divorced after 28 years. A young woman named Hannah, who left an abusive marriage 6 months ago. They spoke of not knowing who you are anymore, of relearning how to pay bills, how to sleep alone. One woman across from me said, her voice shaking, "I lost 20 years in silence, 20 years afraid to speak, fearing I'd be left behind." The room quieted. I saw myself in every sentence, in eyes that hid tears, in hands gripping courage. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and said, "I've been there too." Not 20 years, but long enough to forget the sound of my own voice. But not anymore. My voice didn't shake. It didn't break. It was simply true. A woman nodded and smiled, not in judgment, just solidarity. The facilitator, a middle-aged woman in a purple sweater, added, "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you choose to keep walking, even when it still hurts." After the session, we stayed, trading book lists, podcasts, and favorite cafes. Someone suggested, "Who wants to go to the Carytown Farmers Market next week?" I smiled, raised my hand. "I'll bring baked apples." Driving home, I-94 glowed with sunset. Bare trees lined the road like fine strokes on a canvas. I turned on the radio. Brandi Carlile's "The Story" came on, her voice raspy, rough, honest. I laughed softly to myself. In that moment, I realized I was no longer the woman who'd been betrayed. I was someone learning how to tell her story. At the turn into Bloomfield Hills, the wind slipped through the window, carrying the scent of coming snow. I whispered aloud, as if to myself, "Pain isn't the enemy. Pain proves we're still alive." And I felt truly light, for the winter inside me was slowly melting, making space for something else, the season of healing. 3 months later, I officially closed all legal proceedings. The old house in Bloomfield Hills, once filled with memories woven between love and lies, was sold to a young couple. I remember that morning, signing the papers, my hand steady for the first time. Vera stood beside me and smiled. Sometimes freedom begins with a signature, not to marry, but to leave. I simply replied, "I know." I used the remaining money to buy a small house in Ann Arbor, just 10 minutes from downtown. 2 bedrooms, a white-painted wooden porch, a backyard blooming with wild daisies. Not luxurious, but peaceful. Peaceful like a breath I had forgotten how to take. On the ground floor, I set up a desk by the window, with a small sign, "Second Act Financial Recovery, Divorce Finance Consulting," a consulting service for women post-divorce. The idea came during a support group meeting in Ann Arbor, when I realized how many women didn't know what to do with joint accounts, insurance, or split retirement funds. I wanted to help them avoid what I went through. Lisa loved the new home. She said the porch was the perfect place to draw in the afternoons, and the living room felt warm like Mom's apple pie. That made me laugh. Maybe it was true, because the scent of apple pie seemed to linger in the house, especially when Eleanor came to visit. She often arrived on weekends, carrying a brown paper bag full of toys and baked treats. When I opened the door, she stood there, tired face, but kind eyes. Lisa ran to hug her. "Grandma, can I take the cookies to my room?" "Of course, sweetheart," she laughed. After Lisa went upstairs, I poured tea for her. We sat at the kitchen table, sunlight cutting through the window, steaming from 2 teacups. Eleanor spoke softly, her voice low and trembling. Kimberly, I didn't know if I should come, but Lisa is still my granddaughter. I don't want you to think I picked a side. I set my cup down gently. You don't have to pick a side, Mom. She looked up, eyes moist. Family doesn't end with a paper. It just changes shape, I nodded quietly. Outside, Lisa's laughter echoed as Peanut chased a fluttering scarf through the yard. The scent of apple pie filled the house, warm and sweet, the kind of smell that, despite all changes, still softened my heart. Eleanor gently held my hand. You've done well, Kimberly. Maybe this is the life you were meant to live. I smiled, nodded, and looked out the garden. No, Mom. This is the life I rebuilt myself. One Saturday afternoon, the March breeze was soft, and sunlight poured gold over the streets of Ann Arbor. I parked outside the Trader Joe's on State Street, a small store always filled with the scent of baked bread and soft country music. I slowly pushed my cart down each aisle, picking up a loaf of whole-grain bread, a bag of Colombian organic coffee, a few red apples, and the almond milk Lisa liked. Everything felt so ordinary, it was almost peaceful. At checkout, the young cashier smiled brightly. Beautiful day, Ms. Roberts. I nodded, answering softly. It is. A truly beautiful day. And I realized it was the first time in years I said that and actually meant it. Driving home, I tuned into country radio 99.5 WYCD. Miranda Lambert's voice rose with The House That Built Me. The acoustic guitar strummed gently, filling the small car. In the rearview mirror, my face reflected between light and shadow. No longer the woman afraid of nights alone. Just me. Calm, free, and with nothing left to prove. When the lyrics hit, if I could just come in, I swear I'll leave. I won't take nothing but a memory. I smiled. Maybe that's exactly what I was doing, passing through old memories, carrying only what they taught me. How to stand again. The road back to Ann Arbor was lined with golden leaves, trees casting light ribbons across the windshield. I lowered the volume, wind pouring through the window, the smell of fresh coffee swirling. A squirrel darted across the turn. My foot touched the brake, and I laughed to myself. In that moment, as I drove alone, unhurried, unburdened, with just country music and warm light, I realized I no longer felt alone in the driver's seat. Time moved strangely fast. By December, Ann Arbor was blanketed in snow. Christmas lights strung across porches transformed the neighborhood into a ribbon of wonder. It was the first Christmas after the divorce, and also the first one I truly felt at peace. That afternoon, I set the table, placing wine glasses and cinnamon cookies Lisa had baked with Eleanor. The little house smelled of butter, cinnamon, and almond. Vera Murphy arrived first, wearing a deep blue sweater, holding a bottle of Italian red wine. Takes something special to drag me out of the office on a holiday, she joked, but I think your house qualifies. A little later, Emily Sanders, the young woman who once sent the evidence email about Raymond, walked in with a small brown paper gift tied with red ribbon. For Lisa, she said she liked Legos. I looked at her, seeing in her eyes the quiet bravery of someone who once dared to speak the truth. The three of us gathered around the table while Lisa ran in circles chasing Peanut, the tiny rescue dog, a fuzzy slipper dangling from his mouth. We turned on Home Alone, Christmas music mixed with Lisa's giggles as Kevin slid on banana peels. I looked around the living room, soft golden lights washed over every face here. Each woman carried her own wounds, but tonight, no one spoke of pain. We talked about ordinary things. Jobs, food, small plans for the new year. Peanut circled the tree, dragging a red ribbon. Lisa collapsed in laughter, Vera chuckled, and Emily filmed on her phone. I held my wine glass, speaking slowly. This is home. No one responded, but Vera lifted her glass gently, her eyes glowing in the light. Outside, the snow fell slow as breath, coating the porch and windows. Inside me rose a new feeling, Not loud joy, but the deep warmth of a survivor who found her own light. Lisa leaned on my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "I think Santa will definitely find our house." I laughed, kissed her forehead. "Yes, because this year I turned the lights on bright." The house burst into laughter. And in that snowy night, I knew Christmas wasn't just a holiday, it was a marker of a new life. Warmer, truer, freer. 1 year later. Spring arrived in Ann Arbor, skies clear, apple trees blooming white along Huron River Drive. My life was quiet, but meaningful. Second act financial recovery, the divorce finance service I started, had helped over 15 women uncover hidden or obscured assets during their divorce. Some had sobbed in our first meeting, only to smile months later when they reclaimed their retirement funds. Each morning, I dropped Lisa at school, stopped by my favorite cafe, then returned to the small office by the porch. On the wall, I hung a wooden sign engraved with, "Freedom doesn't come from revenge. It comes from rebuilding." One April day, my phone rang. A producer's voice from the Morning Brew Detroit podcast said, "Kimberly Roberts? We'd love to have you on the show to talk about financial recovery after divorce. Your story's been shared all over Michigan women's forums." I sat in a lit studio, microphone before me, the male host's voice warm and low. "Kimberly, if you could say one thing to a woman listening right now, someone lost between pain and fear, what would it be?" I looked up, smiled, my voice no longer trembling. "That truth doesn't break you, it teaches you to swim." The host paused, then laughed. Studio lights cast a glow over my face, a face once shattered, now clearer than ever. 2 weeks later, the episode had over 1.2 million listens. My inbox overflowed. "You inspired me to check my husband's accounts." "I got divorced last week, and I'm okay." "I found myself after hearing your voice." I read each line, hands trembling slightly. Every message was a life starting over. Like me, 1 year ago. Vera texted simply, "Proud of you, Kimberly." Justice echoes louder when it heals. That afternoon, Lisa, Peanut, and I drove toward Belle Isle Park. The Detroit lake wind tossed my hair. Sunlight sparkled on the water. I turned on the radio. "I Hope You Dance" by Lee Ann Womack played. Gentle yet strong. Lisa sang the opening lines. Peanut stuck his head out the window, floppy ears catching the wind. I smiled, hands on the wheel, heart at peace. My voice, not a monologue, but a whisper, joined the music. He drowned in lies. And I learned how to swim, to breathe, and to believe. The BMW E7 crossed the Belle Isle Bridge, the Detroit River glowing in red sunset. The wind carried the scent of water, of freedom, of a new chapter just begun. Share this story if you believe women deserve freedom and peace. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to hear more journeys of courage and rebirth.
So here's something they don't mention in bridal magazines. The optimal distance for throwing a bouquet is also, coincidentally, the perfect range for launching it at your cheating fiancé's face. I'm Elise, and apparently when they said, something borrowed, something blue, nobody specified that shouldn't include your best friend borrowing your future husband for extracurricular activities. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1:47 p.m. on a Saturday in July, and I'm standing in the bridal suite of Charleston's historic church. You know, that postcard-perfect venue with the white columns and Spanish moss that every Southern girl supposedly dreams about. I'm in a dress that cost more than my nursing school loans, holding a bouquet of white roses that suddenly feel like a weapon, and I've got exactly 13 minutes before I'm supposed to walk down that aisle and commit the biggest mistake of my life. Except I'm not going to do that. Because 3 months ago, on a perfectly mundane Monday while Graham was showing a very important client around a waterfront mansion, I discovered that Apple's ecosystem is both a technological marvel and a relationship-destroying machine. See, Graham's Apple Watch was synced to my iPad. And when you're casually scrolling through Pinterest looking for centerpiece ideas for your wedding, you don't exactly expect to see text messages popping up that say, "Can't wait until this charade is over and we're free. Counting down the days until Maldives, baby." The sender? Not some random side piece. Oh no, that would be too simple. It was Vera. You know, Vera, my supposed best friend since freshman year at College of Charleston, my roommate for 2 years, the person I asked to be my maid of honor because we'd been through everything together. The girl who posted Instagram stories about friendship goals and my person, with pictures of us at brunch. The fitness influencer with 200,000 followers who apparently decided that horizontal cardio with my fiancé counted as part of her workout routine. The messages kept coming, each one a fresh little knife to the gut. Pictures I will not describe because this is a family-friendly revenge story. Plans for after the wedding. Discussions about how Elise is so focused on making everything perfect, she doesn't even notice when Graham comes home late. They weren't wrong about that last part, which honestly stings worse than the betrayal itself. But here's where it gets truly spectacular. Buried in those messages was a confirmation for honeymoon reservations. Our Maldives trip. The overwater bungalow I'd spent months researching. Except the reservation had been changed. The names now? Graham Barrett and Vera Caldwell. They were going to steal my honeymoon. Literally. The honeymoon I'd helped plan. The one where I'd carefully selected the resort with the best snorkeling because Graham said he wanted to learn. Apparently, the only diving he was interested in didn't involve coral reefs. For 3 months, I played the perfect bride-to-be. I showed up to dress fittings with Vera, smiled through her helpful comments about how maybe I should try her trainer before the wedding. I nodded enthusiastically when Graham's mother, Judith, who'd dropped $45,000 on this wedding, showed me the custom-engraved champagne flutes she'd ordered. I confirmed vendor appointments, addressed invitations, and pretended I didn't know that my fiancé was sneaking out of bed at 5 a.m. to go running with my maid of honor. You know what they say about nurses? We're good in a crisis. We stay calm. We assess the situation. We make a plan. And let me tell you, I made one beautiful plan. The day before the wedding, during the rehearsal, I watched them. Graham kept finding excuses to stand near Vera. She'd touch his arm and laugh at something he said. His mother beamed at me, talking about how blessed she was to be gaining a daughter. The bridesmaids chatted about their dresses. The groomsmen made jokes about Graham's last night of freedom. And I smiled. God, I smiled so much my face hurt. That night, at the rehearsal dinner at Fleet Landing restaurant overlooking the harbor, Graham gave a speech. Talked about how lucky he was, how he couldn't wait to spend forever with me, how I was his best friend and soulmate. Vera sat 3 seats down, radiant in a pink dress, raising her glass. I caught her hand resting on her stomach for just a second, a protective maternal gesture that was brief but telling. That's when I knew. Not just the affair, not just the honeymoon theft, there was more. So now it's 1:52 p.m. on Saturday, July 13th. My hair is perfect, twisted into some kind of elegant updo that took 2 hours and cost $300. My makeup is flawless. My dress is a stunning A-line with lace details that made my mother cry when I first tried it on. I look like every bridal magazine cover you've ever seen. And I'm about to blow up my own wedding. There's a knock on the door. 15 minutes, sweetie. My mother's voice trembling with excitement. She has no idea what's coming. Nobody does. Except me. And maybe the photographer, nice guy named Felix who I hired 6 months ago, before everything went to hell. He's been documenting this whole day, and something in his eyes when he photographed the bridesmaids earlier told me he suspected something was off. Photographers notice things. I take one last look in the mirror. The girl staring back at me looks nothing like the naive pediatric nurse who said yes to Graham's proposal on Folly Beach 18 months ago. That girl thought she'd found her person. This woman? She knows exactly what she's doing. I pick up the bouquet. White roses, eucalyptus, a touch of baby's breath. It cost $400. Seems like a shame to waste it on a groom who's already moved on. The music starts. That's my cue. Time to give 200 people the show they didn't know they came for. The doors open, and suddenly I'm staring down an aisle that looks like something out of Southern Living magazine. Judith really went all out. Hundreds of white roses, candles everywhere. Those gauzy white drapes that probably cost more than my car payment. 200 faces turned toward me, all smiling, all expecting the fairy tale moment. Graham standing at the altar in his Tom Ford tuxedo, looking like every real estate billboard in Charleston come to life. Tall, handsome, that perfectly practiced smile that sells million-dollar properties and apparently sells lies just as easily. Next to him, his groomsmen are lined up like a catalog for men who peak in college. And on the other side, my bridesmaids in their dusty rose dresses. Vera's right there at the front, looking absolutely radiant. Of course she does. Pregnancy glow is real. And apparently so is the glow of getting away with sleeping with your best friend's fiancé. Her Instagram followers would be so proud. Oh wait, they're about to find out exactly what kind of content creator she really is. I start walking. 1 step, 2 steps. My father's arm is locked in mine, and I can feel him trembling with emotion. Dad thinks he's giving away his little girl to a good man. Poor Dad. This is going to require so much therapy. For all of us. As I pass the rows, I see faces I know. Graham's colleagues from Palmetto Elite Properties, all dressed to impress, probably already planning their networking conversations for the reception. My co-workers from Charleston Children's Hospital, some still in that perpetual state of exhaustion that comes with pediatric nursing, but dressed up for the occasion. Our college friends, the ones who'd been around since Vera and I were roommates, who'd celebrated when Graham proposed, who thought we were relationship goals. I reach the front. Graham's eyes are doing that thing. That soft, loving look that I used to think was genuine. Now I know it's the same look he gives clients when he's about to close a deal. Everything's a transaction with him. The officiant, Reverend Matthews, a sweet man in his 60s who's been at this church for 30 years and has probably never seen what's about to happen, clears his throat and begins. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I let him get through about 45 seconds of the standard opening. Long enough that everyone's settled in, phones are away. Judith had a strict no-phones policy during the ceremony, which is about to be hilariously ironic. And the atmosphere is peak sentimental. Then I turn to Graham. He's looking at me with those blue eyes, probably mentally calculating how soon he can get me down that aisle, through the reception, and onto his real honeymoon with Vera. Graham, I say, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the Reverend's speech. The church goes quiet. I have something to say before we continue. His face does this micro-expression thing. Confusion, then concern, then a flash of panic that he quickly tries to hide. Too late. I saw it. Elise, sweetheart, maybe we should... He starts, reaching for my hand. I step back. No, I think everyone here deserves to hear this. Especially your mother, who paid $45,000 for this beautiful event. I turn to face the crowd. 200 faces, now thoroughly confused. Judith's in the front row, looking concerned. My mother's next to her, hand over her mouth. Dad's face has gone from proud to alarmed in record time. So, fun story, I say, channeling every ounce of customer service voice I've ever used when dealing with difficult parents in the pediatric ward. Sweet, professional, with just a hint of I'm about to ruin your whole day. 3 months ago, I discovered something interesting. Did you know that when you sync your Apple Watch to someone's iPad, all your messages show up? Technology is amazing, isn't it? Graham's face drains of color. Vera's hand, which was casually holding her bridesmaid bouquet, starts trembling. The roses shake like there's a small earthquake happening in the front of the church. Graham has been having an affair, I continue, and the church erupts in gasps. With Vera, the gasps turn into full chaos. 200 people suddenly trying to process this information, turning to look at Vera, whose face has gone from pregnancy glow radiant to the color of old mayonnaise. Elise, this is not the time. Graham tries, his real estate voice kicking in, that smooth talking that probably works on clients who don't know he's a lying snake in an expensive suit. Oh, this is exactly the time, I say. Because here's the thing that really gets me. It's not just that you two were sneaking around for months. It's not just that you were doing it while I was picking out flowers and cake flavors and trying on dresses. It's that you literally changed the honeymoon reservations to your names. You were going to take my honeymoon, the trip I planned, the overwater bungalow I researched for hours because you said, and I quote, "I've always wanted to learn to snorkel with you, babe." Someone in the back laughs. It's a shocked, uncomfortable laugh, but it's there. The kind of laugh that happens when something is so absurd your brain doesn't know how else to process it. But wait, I say, because I'm on a roll now, and this is honestly the most honest I've been in 3 months. There's more. Vera, sweetheart, do you want to share your news? Or should I? Vera looks like she wants the ground to open up and swallow her whole. Her Instagram perfect face is crumpling, mascara starting to run. So much for waterproof. Graham steps forward. Elise, please, we can talk about this privately. Privately? I laugh. And it sounds slightly unhinged even to my own ears. You mean like how you privately told Vera that I was so focused on making everything perfect that I didn't notice when you came home late? Or how you privately planned to leave me for her after stealing my honeymoon? Judith stands up. Graham's mother, all 5 feet 2 inches of her, in her mother of the groom champagne dress, clutching her custom-engraved champagne flute like it's a weapon. Graham Michael Barrett, what is she talking about? The middle name. The mom voice. Graham actually flinches. Mom, I can explain. Vera's pregnant, I say. Because why let him control this narrative any longer? 3 months. Which means the timeline of when this started is even worse than you think, Judith. They've been doing this since at least April. The church explodes. People are standing up. Someone's crying. I think it's one of Vera's sorority sisters, which is rich considering how many times I heard them gossip about other people's relationship drama. My bridesmaids look shell-shocked. The groomsmen are slowly backing away from Graham like he's contagious. And then Graham says the thing that makes this whole nightmare somehow worse. Elise, you have to understand. His voice cracks, and for a second I almost feel bad. Almost. Vera's pregnant. I had to do the right thing. I was going to tell you after the honeymoon. You would have understood. You're good with kids. You're a nurse. You get it. The right thing. This man. This absolute walnut of a human being. He cheated on me, got my best friend pregnant, stole my honeymoon plans, and now he's standing here telling me that marrying me while planning to leave me for her was the right thing, because I would have understood. I look at Vera. Did you actually fall for that line? That this was the right thing? She's crying now, full ugly cry, and I almost feel bad for her. Almost. But then I remember every brunch where she asked invasive questions about my relationship, every time she accidentally touched Graham's arm, every Instagram story she posted about loyalty and friendship. I love him, Vera sobs. You don't understand, Elise. You were always so busy with work. He was lonely. I was just there for him. You were there for him, I repeat slowly. You were there for him in my bed, I assume? In the condo that's in my name? The one where you crashed for a few weeks last March when your apartment flooded? Her face confirms everything. I turn back to the crowd. My makeup is still perfect. My hair hasn't moved. I look like a bride from a magazine, except magazines don't usually feature brides holding their bouquet like they're considering which target to hit first. So here's what's going to happen, I announce. The ceremony is obviously canceled. But you know what isn't canceled? The reception. The food is paid for. The bar is open. The band is ready. And I already paid for all of it. So you lovely people are going to go enjoy it. Every last bite of that overpriced sea bass. Every drop of the premium open bar. Dance to the band. Take pictures. Have the time of your lives. I look directly at Graham and Vera. You two are not invited. Then I turn to Judith, who looks like she's aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. I'm sorry your son turned out to be a train wreck in a tuxedo, but thank you for the party. And with that, I walk back down the aisle, bouquet still in hand, head held high, while 200 people sit in absolute stunned silence. Behind me, I hear Graham calling my name. I hear Vera sobbing. I hear the chaos erupting. I don't turn around. You know what's funny about walking out of your own wedding? The exit is a lot faster than the entrance. No slow march, no coordinated steps with your father, no pausing for the photographer. Just you, a designer dress, and the burning desire to get to the bridal suite before you lose your composure. I make it exactly 3 hallways before the adrenaline crashes and my hands start shaking. The bouquet drops to the floor. Those $400 roses scatter across the historic hardwood like expensive confetti. I lean against the wall, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal human and not like someone who just detonated their entire life in front of 200 witnesses. That was the most spectacular thing I've ever photographed, and I once covered a food fight at a governor's fundraiser. I look up. It's Felix, the photographer, camera still hanging around his neck. He's maybe 34, with dark hair and this quiet, observant way about him that made me choose him over flashier options. Right now, he's holding out a bottle of water like it's a peace offering. "I'm documenting a wedding that didn't happen," I say, taking the water. "Pretty sure that's not what you signed up for." "Are you kidding? This is going in my portfolio under most honest ceremony ever." He sits down on the floor next to me, completely unbothered by the fact that his dress shirt might get dusty. For what it's worth, I suspected something 3 weeks ago during the engagement shoot. The way your fiancé kept checking his phone. The way your maid of honor kept looking at him when you weren't watching. I almost said something. "Why didn't you?" "Because I'm a photographer, not a marriage counselor. And honestly, I figured if you didn't know, it wasn't my place." He pauses. "But I saved all the photos. Every single one. Including the ones from today. All the reactions. Everything. They're yours if you want them." Something in my brain clicks. All of them? Every single one. He pulls out his camera, scrolling through. "Including this beauty of your ex-fiancé's face when you mentioned the Apple Watch, and this one of Vera when you brought up the pregnancy. Oh, and this series of his mother looking like she's mentally calculating how to disown her son." "Felix," I interrupt, an idea forming. "How would you feel about doing me a favor that's technically legal but definitely petty?" He grins. "I'm listening." 20 minutes later, I'm back in the bridal suite. Door locked, shoes off, phone in hand. My bridesmaids have been banished to the reception. They tried to check on me, but honestly, I need space from their shocked faces and useless platitudes. It's just me, Felix, and a plan that's either brilliant or junk grounds for a restraining order. First order of business. I log into Vera's Instagram. Now, before you judge me, she gave me her password 2 years ago when she was on vacation and needed me to post her content schedule. The password was Graham 2019, which, in hindsight, should have been a red flag the size of Texas. She never changed it because Vera, for all her influencer savvy, is shockingly bad at basic security. Her account is pristine. Carefully curated photos of her doing yoga poses on the beach, green smoothie bowls, motivational quotes in that insufferable font all influencers use, sponsored posts for athletic wear companies. The most recent post from this morning, a photo of her in the bridesmaid dress with the caption, "So honored to stand beside my best friend on her special day. Bridesmaid, duties, friendship, goals. Love is in the air." The comments are full of her followers gushing about how beautiful she looks, asking about her skincare routine, wondering if she's ever going to settle down herself. Oh, the irony is delicious. I look at Felix. "Ready? I was born ready for this level of chaos." I create a new post. Felix has helped me select the perfect photo. A shot from earlier today, right before the ceremony, where Vera is touching Graham's arm and they're both smiling at each other. It's subtle enough that you might miss it in a casual scroll, but once you know what you're looking for, it's damning. Felix is a genius with a camera. The caption I write takes me 15 minutes to perfect. Sometimes the hardest workouts aren't physical, they're emotional. Today I learned that honesty is more important than maintaining an image. I've been having a relationship with someone who was committed to someone else. That someone was my best friend's fiancé. I'm pregnant. The wedding didn't happen. I'm sorry to everyone involved, and I'm especially sorry to Elise, who deserved so much better. This account will be going private while I figure out my next steps. To my sponsors, I understand if you need to cut ties. I made choices that don't reflect the values you hired me to represent. Accountability. Your mistakes were made. No excuses. That's surprisingly mature, Felix says, reading over my shoulder. Oh, I'm not done. I post it, then immediately change her password so she can't delete it. Then I send the new password to her phone with a message. You wanted to be transparent on social media. Here's your chance. The new password is in your email. You have 24 hours before I make it public. Choose wisely. My phone immediately starts blowing up. Text messages from numbers I don't recognize, probably people who were at the ceremony. Missed calls from my mother, my sister, even some of my coworkers. But the message I'm waiting for comes through 10 minutes later. Graham. Elise, please, we need to talk. This is insane. You're being irrational. Me. Irrational is thinking I'd marry you after you got my best friend pregnant. But let's talk about rational. How rational was it to put the Maldives resort in both your names? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Graham. That was Vera's idea. She insisted. I was going to cancel it. Me. When? After you came back from my honeymoon with her? The typing bubbles appear and disappear 3 times. He's got nothing. Felix is scrolling through his camera, organizing files. So what's the actual plan here? Public humiliation is great and all, but you seem like you're building towards something bigger. He's right. The Instagram post is just the opening act. What I haven't told anyone, not my parents, not my bridesmaids, not even Felix until right now, is what else I discovered in those Apple Watch messages. Graham didn't just cheat on me, I say slowly, pulling up a folder on my phone. Screenshots, dozens of them. He's been running a side scheme through his real estate company. Nothing illegal exactly, but definitely unethical. He's been inflating property appraisals for his high-end clients, taking kickbacks, and basically manipulating deals in ways that would get him fired and blacklisted if anyone found out. Felix whistles low. And you have proof? Screenshots of messages, bank transfers, everything. I've been collecting evidence for 2 months, ever since I found the first message about it buried between his love notes to Vera. I look at him. I was going to confront him after the wedding, maybe suggest marriage counseling, try to work it out like an idiot, but now? Now you're going nuclear. Now I'm going nuclear, I confirm. Judith paid for this wedding, $45,000. Graham makes good money, but not drop $45K on a party money. His mother dipped into her retirement savings for this because he convinced her it was important, that he was marrying the love of his life, that I was worth it. And she just watched him admit he got someone else pregnant. Exactly. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to that reception, the one I told everyone to enjoy, and I'm going to have a quiet conversation with Judith. I'm going to show her exactly what her son has been doing with his career, and then I'm going to let her decide what to do with that information. Felix leans back against the wall. You're scary. Has anyone ever told you that? I work in pediatric emergency care. Parents lie to me every single day about how their kid got hurt, what medications they're on, whether they've been keeping up with treatments. You learn to read people. You learn to collect evidence. You learn that sometimes the nice approach doesn't work, and you need to bring out the big guns. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Vera. What did you do? My account is blowing up. Change the password back right now. Me. You wanted to be an influencer. Congrats. You're trending. Fitness influencer fails is already starting. I silence my phone and stand up, smoothing down my wedding dress. Felix stands too, camera ready. One more favor, I say. I need you to document the reception. Not the normal pretty shots. The real stuff. Judith's face when I talk to her. Graham if he shows up. Vera's meltdown when she checks her phone. All of it. You're building a case. I'm building a new life. One where I don't get manipulated by pretty real estate brokers with nice smiles and flexible morals. I pick up what's left of my bouquet, a few roses that survived the drop. Plus, I paid for this party. Might as well enjoy it. Felix opens the door for me. For the record, Graham's an idiot. Anyone who would cheat on someone who plans revenge, this methodically deserves everything coming to him. Felix, are you flirting with me at my failed wedding reception? I'm documenting the moment. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. We walk down the hallway toward the reception venue. I can hear music playing. The band is actually performing, which means at least some people took me up on the offer to stay and enjoy the party. The chaos in the church probably only added to the entertainment value. Right before we enter, I check Vera's Instagram one more time. The post has been up for 30 minutes. It has 847 comments and counting. Her follower count is dropping in real time. 195,000, 194,500, 193,800. Some of the top comments. Wait, what? This is the wildest thing I've ever seen on this app. Girl, no amount of green smoothies can fix this mess. The tea is scalding. Her best friend's fiancé? At the wedding? This is insane. One comment from what appears to be a brand account. We'll be in touch regarding our sponsorship agreement. This does not align with our values. Perfect. I put my phone away, take a deep breath, and push open the doors to the reception. Time for Act 2. The reception venue looks like something out of a magazine spread that will never get published because the couple imploded before cutting the cake. White linens, centerpieces with more roses than a flower shop, uplighting that makes everything look soft and romantic. About 150 people are still here. Apparently, drama and an open bar are more appealing than going home early on a Saturday. The energy is absolutely unhinged. People are clustered in groups, whispering frantically, looking at their phones. Some are actually eating. The filet mignon and sea bass I selected 3 months ago when I still thought I had a future with Graham. The band is playing jazz standards like nothing happened. Because professionals are professionals, and they're getting paid either way. I spot Judith immediately. She's sitting alone at what was supposed to be the parents' table, still clutching that champagne flute, staring into the middle distance like she's trying to comprehend how her afternoon went from, "My son is getting married," to, "My son is a lying cheater with a pregnant mistress." I walk over, Felix trailing behind at a respectful distance, camera discreetly documenting everything. My bridesmaid dress train swishes behind me like I'm some kind of avenging angel in overpriced tulle. "Judith," I say softly, sitting down next to her, "can we talk?" She looks at me, and her eyes are red. She's been crying, which makes me feel terrible for approximately 3 seconds, before I remember that her son is the reason we're all in this mess. "Elise, I am so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known—" "I know you didn't," I interrupt gently. "You're not the one who needs to apologize. But there's something else you need to know. About Graham. About his job." Her face shifts from devastated to confused. "His job? What does Palmetto Elite have to do with any of this?" I pull out my phone, opening the folder of screenshots I've been collecting. Graham hasn't just been lying about Vera. He's been running a scheme at work, inflating property appraisals, taking kickbacks from contractors, manipulating deals. Nothing technically illegal, but extremely unethical. The kind of thing that would get him fired immediately if his bosses found out. I show her the messages. Screenshots of Graham texting with contractors. "Bump the appraisal by 50K, we split the difference." Messages to clients. "I have an appraiser who's very flexible with valuations." Bank transfers to an account that isn't his primary checking. Judith's face goes through several emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally, a cold resignation that's honestly scarier than any of the others. "How long have you known?" she asks quietly. 2 months. I found these messages the same day I found out about the affair. I was going to, I don't know. I thought maybe we could work through it. Get counseling. I thought the affair was a stupid mistake and the work thing was just him cutting corners. I laugh bitterly. I was an idiot. "You were in love," Judith corrects. "That's different." She looks at the phone again, scrolling through evidence. "You saved all of this?" Every single message. Timestamps, dates, amounts. "I'm a nurse. Documentation is kind of my thing." Judith is quiet for a long moment, and I can practically see her brain working through options. She's a retired accountant. Numbers and consequences are her language. "His boss," she finally says. "Malcolm Wright. We go to the same church. I've known him for 15 years. I'm not asking you to report him," I say quickly. "That's your choice. I just thought you deserved to know what your retirement savings paid for. Not just a wedding for your son's future. A party for his double life." Judith stands up, smoothing down her champagne-colored dress. "Where is he? Where's Graham?" "I don't know. I haven't seen him since the church." As if summoned by the universe's sense of dramatic timing, the reception doors open. Graham walks in, and he looks like a man who's had the worst day of his life. Which fair, he has. His tie is loosened, jacket gone, hair messed up. Vera is notably not with him. He spots me immediately and starts walking over. Several people notice and the whisper volume increases. Felix's camera clicks softly. Elise, thank God. We need to talk, privately. This has gotten completely out of hand. Out of hand? I stand up, and I'm aware that everyone in the vicinity has stopped pretending not to listen. You got my best friend pregnant, stole my honeymoon, and your excuse was that you were doing the right thing. What part of that suggests I want to talk to you privately? You posted on Vera's Instagram, he hisses, trying to keep his voice down. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her sponsors are dropping her. People are commenting horrible things. She's having a panic attack in her apartment. Good, I say simply. She's having consequences. Welcome to the concept. Graham's face flushes red. You're being vindictive. This isn't like you. The Elise I know wouldn't. The Elise you know doesn't exist, Graham. She was a version I performed because I thought we were building something together. Turns out, you were building something, just with someone else. Judith steps forward, and Graham finally notices his mother is right there, witnessing this entire conversation. Mom, don't listen to her. She's upset. She's not thinking clearly. Graham Michael Barrett. Judith's voice could cut glass. I just saw evidence of your little real estate schemes. The appraisal fraud, the kickbacks, all of it. Graham's face goes white. That's not… How did you… Elise showed me. Time-stamped messages, bank transfers, everything. Judith's voice is shaking, but it's not from sadness anymore. It's from rage. I took money out of my retirement fund for this wedding. Money I've been saving for 30 years. And you used it as a cover while you destroyed your career, your relationship, and apparently any shred of integrity I thought I raised you with. Mom, I can explain. Explain to Malcolm Wright, Judith says coldly. I'm calling him Monday morning. You're going to confess everything to your boss before I do it for you. You wouldn't… Try me. Judith picks up her purse. I'm going home. Elise, thank you for showing me who my son really is. I'm sorry it cost you so much to find out yourself. She walks out, and the silence she leaves behind is deafening. Graham turns on me, and for the first time, I see genuine panic in his eyes. You vindictive. Do you have any idea what you've just done? That's my career, that's my reputation. That's everything I've built. No, I correct. That's everything you destroyed. I just documented it. This isn't over, Elise. You think you've won? You've just made this so much worse for yourself? Actually, Felix interrupts, stepping forward with his camera. It's very much over. I photographed this entire conversation, time-stamped, with audio from the camera's video function, including the part where you just essentially confirmed the fraud your mother mentioned. Graham looks at Felix like he's seeing him for the first time. Who the hell are you? The photographer you hired? Well, that Elise hired. Turns out I'm very good at my job. Felix gives him a cheerful smile that's absolutely savage. Say cheese. Graham looks between us, realizes he's completely cornered, and does the most predictable thing possible. He storms out, knocking into a waiter carrying champagne glasses on his way. The crash is spectacular. Glasses everywhere. Champagne soaking into the white linens. The room erupts in whispers again. My phone buzzes. It's a text from a number I don't recognize. This is Malcolm Wright, from Palmetto Elite Properties. Judith Barrett just called me. I need to speak with you about Graham. Are these allegations true? I look at Felix. Is it petty to feel satisfied right now? If it is, we're both terrible people. But I'm okay with that. I text Malcolm back. Yes, I have documentation. Available Monday if you'd like to see it. His response is immediate. Monday, 9 a.m. My office. Graham is suspended pending investigation as of right now. I show Felix the message. He grins. That's one career destroyed. What about the other? I ask, checking Vera's Instagram again. Her follower count is now at 178,000 and dropping. The comment section is absolutely brutal. Someone's made a meme using one of her motivational quotes overlaid on a picture from today. It's already been shared 2,000 times. Another notification. 3 different brands have publicly announced they're ending their partnerships with her. One of them posted a statement about values and integrity that's basically a professionally worded version of, We don't want to be associated with this mess. My bridesmaid Sarah approaches cautiously. Elise, are you okay? Honestly, I'm fantastic. Is the bar still open? Yeah, everyone's kind of just staying. This is the wildest thing that's ever happened in Charleston social circles. People are texting their friends to come. Perfect. Tell the bartender the next round is on Graham's tab. Oh wait, I paid for everything. I laugh, and it sounds slightly manic. Tell them the next round is on me. Everyone who stayed gets to witness karma in real time. Sarah hugs me. You're insane, and I'm here for it. Over the next hour, the reception turns into the strangest party I've ever attended. People are eating, drinking, dancing, but instead of celebrating a wedding, they're basically attending the social funeral of Graham Barrett and Vera Caldwell. Someone starts a hashtag, Elise Revenge. It trends locally within 30 minutes. Felix stays by my side, documenting everything. At some point, he stops being just the photographer and becomes my partner in this absolute circus. You know, he says as we watch people dance to a Motown cover, I've photographed 43 weddings. This is the first one where the bride ended up better off without the groom. The day's not over yet, I say. For all I know, Graham's going to show up with lawyers or something equally dramatic. Let him try. Felix raises his glass, champagne that was supposed to toast my marriage, to dodging bullets disguised as bouquets. I clink my glass against his. And to photographers who document the evidence. Speaking of which, he says, pulling out his camera, smile. This one's for you. Not for anyone else. Just a reminder that you survived today. I smile. A real one. Not the fake bride smile I've been wearing for months. Felix takes the photo, then shows it to me. I look strong. Tired, definitely. Still in the wedding dress that cost too much. But strong. I'm keeping that one, I say. It's already yours, he replies. Everything from today is yours. Every photo, every video, every moment. You paid for it after all. My phone buzzes one more time. It's from Vera. Please, please take down the post. I'm losing everything. My career is over. I have a baby coming. Please, Elise. I'm begging you. I look at the message for a long time. Then I text back, you should have thought about that before you decided my fiancé was part of your fitness routine. The password is Being Accountable 2025. Change it yourself. Or don't. Your choice. I send her the new password, then block her number. Felix watches me do it. Merciful, but still savage. I'm a nurse, I say. I help people, but I don't enable them. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. The band starts playing I Will Survive, and the irony is so perfect that several people start laughing, including me. Felix holds out his hand. Want to dance at your own non-wedding reception? I take it. Why the hell not? And we do. In the middle of the venue, surrounded by people who came to see a wedding and got a revolution instead, I dance in my wedding dress with the photographer who documented my freedom. Best reception ever. 6 months later, and I'm sitting in my condo, the one that's still entirely in my name, drinking coffee and scrolling through the weirdest Instagram notifications I've ever received. Apparently, revenge stories have a surprisingly long shelf life on the internet. Someone found the photos from that day and made them into a How to Handle a Cheating Fiancé tutorial. Another person wrote a think piece about modern wedding culture and accountability. There's even a podcast episode about it titled The Bride Who Said No, a story of boundaries and bouquets. The attention was overwhelming at first. Then it became amusing. Now it's just background noise. White noise, except instead of rain sounds, it's strangers on the internet arguing about whether I was justified or too harsh. Too harsh. That's my favorite critique. As if discovering your fiancé's second life and choosing not to marry him anyway is somehow the unreasonable part of this story. Let me catch you up on where everyone landed, because closure is important, and I'm petty enough to enjoy knowing exactly how the dominoes fell. Graham. Fired from Palmetto Elite Properties exactly 9 days after the wedding that wasn't. Turns out Malcolm Wright doesn't appreciate real estate fraud, even the technically not illegal but completely unethical kind. Graham tried to get another job at competing firms, but Charleston's luxury real estate world is smaller than you'd think. Word travels fast when you've been publicly humiliated and professionally disgraced in the same weekend. Last I heard, he's selling used cars in Colombia. The irony of a man who manipulated property values now haggling over Hondas is not lost on me. Vera lost 160,000 followers in total. Her Instagram never recovered, even after she changed the password and tried damage control. Turns out, fitness influencer who got pregnant by her best friend's fiancé isn't a marketable brand. She had the baby, a girl, according to mutual friends who can't help but update me despite my repeated insistence that I don't care. She moved back home to her parents' place in Greenville. No more sponsored posts about green smoothies and yoga poses, just real life, which is significantly less photogenic. Judith sent me a handwritten apology letter 3 weeks after the wedding, along with a check refunding the money I'd spent on my bridesmaid dresses and various wedding expenses. I didn't cash it. Instead, I framed it and hung it in my bathroom as a reminder that some people actually have integrity. She also completely cut Graham off financially, which he apparently did not see coming. I respect her more than I ever respected her son. My parents took about 2 weeks to process everything, then took me out for the most expensive dinner Charleston offers and told me they were proud of me for knowing my worth. My mother cried, but in a good way. My father, who's normally a forgive and forget type, said Graham was lucky he didn't show up at our house because there are some things even a pastor can't forgive. Dad's a Methodist minister, so this was essentially him threatening violence in the most Christian way possible. My career, completely unaffected, thank God. Turns out pediatric hospitals don't care about your personal drama as long as you show up and take care of the kids. My coworkers were supportive in that efficient medical professional way, brought me coffee, didn't ask invasive questions, and covered my shifts when I needed a mental health day. One of the ER doctors did tell me I was savage as hell, and that she respected it, which felt like high praise from someone who regularly deals with actual emergencies. And Felix, the photographer who documented my liberation, became something much more interesting. We started with coffee 2 weeks after the wedding. He wanted to give me the full collection of photos. I wanted to thank him properly. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekend trips to Folly Beach. Weekend trips turned into him having a toothbrush in my bathroom and me having a key to his studio downtown. We're taking it slow, which feels revolutionary after years of rushing toward a future with the wrong person. He makes me laugh. He calls me out when I'm being stubborn. He's never once checked his phone while we're together and then lied about who he was texting. The bar is literally on the ground, and yet he clears it easily. Last month, he showed me a project he's been working on, a photo series about beginnings and endings. The centerpiece? That photo he took of me at the reception, still in my wedding dress, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. He titled it, Liberation in Lace. Too on the nose? He asked. Absolutely, I said. I love it. Here's what I learned from the whole disaster. People will always have opinions about how you handle betrayal. Some will say you should have been quieter, more dignified, more forgiving. Those people have probably never had their entire future casually demolished by someone who promised forever. I learned that documentation is power. Screenshots, photos, evidence. Keep it all. Not because you're paranoid, but because you deserve to remember the truth when someone tries to rewrite history. I learned that the trash sometimes takes itself out, and your only job is to not chase after it with apologies for being too emotional or too harsh. I learned that closure doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like blocking numbers, changing passwords, and dancing at your own non-wedding reception with a photographer who saw you at your worst and decided to stick around anyway. Most importantly, I learned that the best revenge isn't actually revenge at all. It's building a life so good that you forget to care about the people who tried to destroy the old one. Graham texts me sometimes. I have him permanently muted, but I can see the notifications pile up. Apologies, justifications, requests to talk like adults. I don't respond. There's nothing he could say that would matter. He made his choices. I made mine. We both have to live with them. Vera sent me a friend request last week. I laughed so hard I choked on my coffee. Declined, obviously. My wedding dress is in storage. I thought about selling it, but honestly, it's earned its place in my closet. It's the dress I wore when I chose myself over a comfortable lie. That's worth keeping. This Saturday, Felix and I are going to Folly Beach for the weekend. No plans, no agenda, just us and the ocean and the understanding that sometimes the best thing that can happen is having your worst fears confirmed before you make a permanent mistake. People ask me if I regret how I handled it. If I wish I'd been more private, less dramatic, more mature. Here's my answer. I regret wasting 3 years on someone who saw me as convenient rather than essential. I regret ignoring red flags because I was attached to a fantasy. I regret not trusting my instincts sooner, but standing up in that church, telling the truth, and walking away from a disaster disguised as a wedding, that I don't regret at all. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is make a scene. Sometimes quiet dignity is overrated. Sometimes you need to blow up your own life before someone else does it for you. And sometimes, just sometimes, the photographer captures more than just the wedding. He captures the exact moment you become someone who refuses to settle for less than she deserves. That's a picture worth keeping.